What is up, everyone? Can you hear my voice? Can you hear the guitar and everything? Let me know how the sound is. If the video is good and all that kind of stuff too. Let's move the camera a little bit. How's everybody doing tonight? What is going on? It's been a little while since I've done a live stream, a couple weeks, and I wanted to jump on tonight and hang with you guys, do a little bit of jamming. I'm just warming up because I haven't played too much today, a little bit, but also wanted to answer questions. And if you guys have guitar questions, kind of like teaching stuff, like you guys have questions that you're wondering about playing guitar, learning guitar, or want some advice or anything like that, yeah, ask away, because I thought it'd be kind of fun to go over some of that stuff tonight. It's cold in here a little bit tonight, so I'm trying to warm up my hands here. All right. I see someone says, can you play the Crazy Train solo? Maybe in a little bit, but my hands are cold. I'm not going to try to play Crazy Train when my hands are cold. Let's do a little warming up. Someone said, do you prefer Les Pauls or Super Strats? Honestly, I don't think I would want to do without both. Yeah, like a Super Strat, obviously for comfort and playability, and maybe having a guitar with like 24 frets and all that kind of stuff. But I can't do without a Les Paul. I love a Les Paul style guitar, so that's why the second Kiesel that I had ordered custom was the CS6, the Les Paul style guitar, and I love that guitar so much. So one of each. That's the answer. You got to have one of each. Sounded like Black Star. See, now this is the trouble though, is that last live stream I ended up playing a bunch of the songs that you guys were requesting, which I'm happy to do and it's fun. And then it got demonetized and all that kind of stuff. And I was having copyright troubles afterwards about, playing literally like 10, 15 seconds of a song. The whole live stream was demonetized because of that, which is kind of annoying. So when you say Black Star, I'd love to play Black Star. I think all I can get away with is, that's like as much as I'm allowed to play. As soon as I go, it's like, oh, copyright strike. I love this clean tone. It sounds so nice. Okay, I think I had a couple questions here. Let's see. How do you get better at phrasing? Okay, to try to answer that quickly, that could be a whole 2-hour lesson. How to get better at phrasing? Oh man. First of all, learn as much music as you can. Learn, so let's say soloing, right? Learn as many guitar solos as you possibly can from as many different guitar players as you can, because you're going to learn all different styles and ways of phrasing things and playing things. And it's going to give you a very wide library to kind of draw from when you're improvising. The number one thing, which is really hard to do with improvising and phrasing, is to use your ear. What I mean by that is a lot of us kind of tend to, use the fingers or even the visualization of the fretboard when improvising. So it's, letting the muscle memory take over or looking at the scales of what you want to do. Ultimately, for any really good music, whether it's technical or not, it's all your ear. It's all how things sound. So one thing I always tell students to do is, like, if they're playing over a chord progression or backing track or something like that, just start with like a single note. Let's say I'm in E minor. Start with a single note and don't move from that note until your ear kind of tells you where you want to go next. So as an example there, I like that. I thought that sounded nice, but I was letting my ear guide me around and not, that wasn't stuff I would normally do or licks I would always play or anything like that, but I'm just letting my ear kind of guide me around the fretboard. As I said, it's harder to do than I'm making it sound, but that should be the goal always when you're improvising, is to try to let your ear guide you around. Obviously, you develop the theory knowledge, the ear training, and the technical skills so that you can do the things you're hearing. So obviously, as I said, a lot harder than I'm making it sound, but ultimately that's the main goal, is let your ear guide you around instead of muscle memory. Hopefully that makes sense and hopefully that helps. Another fun one here. Someone said, can you show us how you hold your pick? I will. Keep in mind, everyone holds the pick differently, and that's one of the biggest things, is everyone always thinks they're doing it wrong. It's what works for you. So how I hold the pick, hopefully you can see this in the camera here. It's a little delayed, so I don't know if it's a good angle, but I hold it with the index and the thumb slightly off of the side of the index. Yeah, I think you guys can see that a little bit. And I won't do tons of plugs or promos, but if you guys want to support the channel, I've teamed up with Bog Street picks, which I love these picks. They're literally the only picks I use, and I recently made a post about them, so you can save 15% off ordering any of these picks, which I absolutely love these. So if you want to support the channel, grab some picks, but they're literally the only ones I use. Okay, and I'm trying to read all the questions here. You guys have tons of great questions. So, here's a great one. What do you see in your head while you're playing? Shapes, colors, letters? That's a great question. When what do I see in my head while I'm playing? And I'm going to talk about improvising, obviously, because if you're playing something rehearsed, that's different, right? That's just muscle memory, committed to memory, execution sort of thing. But like improvising and stuff like that, um, I, you know what? It's hard to explain. There's actually a video. I think it was Vinny Colaiuta had an interview with Rick Beato, if I'm not mistaken. And Vinny Colaiuta was saying that thinking is the enemy of good improv. And it makes sense because I find when I'm able to get into that zone, I'm not really thinking about anything. It's really hard to describe, but it's just like it's almost like letting the music kind of flow through you instead of like forcing it or something like that. Now, I am definitely not able to always get into that zone, and there's many times where I'm improvising where I think it sounds like crap because I'm not in that zone. But when I am able to get into that zone, it's very rewarding and it's very nice, and it just flows, and it is an accumulation of your training. As I said, theory, ear training, technique, all that stuff combined so that you can kind of just do without thinking. But it's kind of like speaking. Music is a language like everything else. When you're communicating and you're speaking, you don't have to really think about how you pronounce every single word or which word is a verb versus a noun or anything like that. You are just able to communicate and you're just able to speak. And with music, it's the same thing. You can get to a point where you can just kind of communicate and you don't have to really think of those things anymore. Kind of like the last question, much easier said than done, but just that's, you want to get into that zone. Alternative tunings, they're fun to play with occasionally, especially if I'm doing any like Zeppelin stuff or what was I playing recently with alternative tunings, like open tunings and stuff like that. I would say more often it's a little more on the acoustic. That may not always be true, but just maybe when I use it, it's more on the acoustic. But yeah, no, they're fun to play with, and it can definitely inspire some creativity to get you playing things you don't normally play. But unfortunately, say you just go to like open D tuning or open C tuning or something like that. It's almost like everything about the guitar just goes out the window because all your shapes and scales and all that kind of stuff are gone. And again, coming back to my point, it forces you to use your ear, which is kind of the fun part with those tunings, is you just have to kind of play around with it and see what sounds good. That is the ultimate rule, is what sounds good, right? It doesn't matter if it's in key or out of key or in time or out of time. If it sounds good, it's good. So it's good to do that. Someone said, do I play Van Halen? Van Halen's my favorite guy, man. He's Eddie's my guy. So I do like to play a lot of Van Halen, absolutely. Here goes a copyright strike. I'm happy to get a copyright strike to play some Van Halen. That is a fair trade. If I gotta play some Van Halen, screw it. I'll get a copyright. Does anyone know that song I was playing, by the way? I'm kind of interested if anyone recognizes it, because I think it's a little bit of a deep take in the EVH catalog, but see if anyone knows it. Nice. Someone's already got it. Nice. You know what's another one that I was jamming the other day? See if you guys know this one. Play a little EVH. Anybody? Anybody know that? Let me change some of my tone here. I can get something better than that. Nice, Black and Blue. Yeah. Some of the later stuff by Eddie. What is some of the other Eddie stuff that I enjoy playing? All right, there goes all my monetization for this for this stream. So it's worth it. It's Eddie. I'll put up with it to play some EVH, as I said. Okay, sorry. I think I missed someone here. You guys are very kind, by the way. The super chat. You don't have to do that. I do very much appreciate it, but let's see what you said here. For someone who can play legato fast going up scales but not in reverse, what would you recommend practicing or implementing? Thanks, you're the best. Thank you. Can I like that? Oh, it shows like I can like it, but I don't think I can. Okay, so for someone who can play legato fast going up scales but not in reverse, I assume going up scales you mean like going up in pitch, like so with legato technique, obviously if you're going up, you're doing hammer-ons, but if you're playing in reverse, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, if I have it backwards here, but then in reverse, you're doing pull-offs, right? And yes, they are both under the umbrella of legato technique, but they're two different things. And usually a lot of guitar players don't realize that they're weaker at one or the other. So if you're doing like a hammer-on and pull-off, almost trill type thing, sounds like the start of Crossroads. I'm not even going to try to attempt that. But anyways, getting back to the question. So Yeah, a lot of times, people will focus on hammer-ons more than they will pull-offs, and you want to make sure that you're practicing your pull-offs so that they're equally as strong. And what I mean by that is with legato technique, you want your technique to be strong. So when you do a hammer-on, and it can be even better to practice this on a clean tone, or even sometimes turn the guitar all the way down and practice this, doing hammer-ons. And make sure you can hear that second note, that hammer-on, nice and loud. If it's kind of like, I'm trying to do it softly now. That second note was way quieter than the first, right? You almost want it as loud as the first note, right? So with pull-offs, it's the same sort of thing. With a pull-off, you have to make sure that whatever note you're pulling off to, if it's fretted, is already there. So if I'm doing like 4 to 6 here, I need the 4 already down when I pull off the 6. So it's already there. But the big mistake most players make is when they do a pull-off, they just let go. And as you can hear, there's really no note there. It's very, very subtle. So you want to flick the string and give it a little pull. And then my left hand is positioned in a way so that when I do pull the string, it's very difficult, almost impossible to not touch the string underneath. But my finger over here is going to be blocking that note or that string so it doesn't make noise. And I can pull off nice and hard and get that note nice and loud, right? So I would practice your scales backwards, just pull-offs. And I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but like pulling off the notes nice and hard and making sure they're nice and loud. Again, on a clean tone, it's a little bit harder because the distortion is going to help you out if you're doing legato. So hopefully that helps. Let me know if I have that backwards at all. Maybe we'll do a little bit of jamming in a second here. I don't want to miss you guys' questions. Oh, Electric Gypsy. I don't think I know that one. That's not it. It's something like, I'm close, but not actually. But I do love Andy Timmons though. That guy. Someone did say, "Oh yeah, just here. Who do you think is an underrated guitar player?" Andy Timmons, for sure. Like, yes, he's super successful, of course, and he deserves to be. But he's pretty underrated for how good he is. He's a really, really good guitar player. He should be at like a Satriani or Vai kind of level, but I don't think as many people would know who he is. So he's incredible guitar player. I want to answer you guys' questions, by the way. If you guys have any questions, like opinions or guitar or anything like that, feel free to ask away. I'm happy to explain anything, or I could even do some jamming over some backing tracks, do some improvising. Yeah, someone mentioned Neil Zaza. He's also a very underrated guitar player. He's an incredible guitar player. What guitar did I start on? I got, if you watch my recent video where I celebrated 3 years of content creation now, at the end of that video, there's a picture of me the day I received my very, very first guitar, and it was from my grandfather. And he gave me my first little acoustic when I was like, I think I just turned 8, if I'm not mistaken. And there's that picture in that video is the day I got my very, very first guitar, and he was showing me a couple chords, which was like super cool. And so I started on that, and then I got like a Strat knockoff, and then a Les Paul knockoff, and it carried on from there. All these different guitars all over the years. But ooh, this is tough. Who are your top 5 guitarists? Now, okay, let's just say top 5 rock guitarists, just to narrow it down, right? And my top 5, okay? So just putting that out there. Personal opinion, top 5 guitar players. Okay, number 1 in my book is Eddie Van Halen, and he is number 1 in my opinion. I would say, like, in if you had to rate greatest of all time, yeah, you could say Hendrix was like, I wouldn't debate you if you were saying Hendrix was just above Eddie, but like I think those two are the big two, and no one comes close to those two. So in my opinion, Eddie is number 1. Now I'm going to answer my top 5 favorite guitar players. Okay, so maybe not actually like the greatest of all time, but number 1 is Eddie. Oh, that's tough. Number 2 probably is Jason Becker. Jason Becker is my second personal favorite guitar player. I don't know many guitar players who completely wow me the same way that Jason Becker does. Guthrie Govan is in the top 5 for sure. Jimmy Page would be in my top 5. A lot of people miss the incredible genius of Jimmy Page and his guitar playing, and they make the mistake, I believe, of comparing him to today's guitar players, comparing Jimmy Page to Paul Gilbert or something like that. It's like, okay, those are two completely different things, and what Jimmy Page did with the guitar was so far beyond anyone else at the time, and just a huge influence on me. He's a huge influence on my guitar playing. Okay, so I think that's 4. 5? Who would be top 5? I want to make sure I'm not missing an obvious one here. And there's going to be a million honorable mentions. Oh man, that's tough. Who's my 5th favorite guitar player? Other than DJ Khaled. He's in his own league, obviously, but what you can say what he did with the guitar no one else has ever done before. You can say that. So that is true. Oh man, that's tough. I feel like I'm missing someone obvious here, but yeah, there's, and then also so many honorable mentions. Paul Gilbert is a massive influence on me. Marty Friedman, as someone said, John Petrucci, all these guys. Joe Satriani is a huge one. He was massive for me. Steve Vai, of course. Steve Vai is like, Yngwie Malmsteen was like a huge influence on me. Like when I was younger, like that just opened so many doors when I heard him for the first time, where it was like hearing things you didn't even think were possible on the guitar. So, and obviously taking in a new style of music into hard rock music was pretty awesome. And also great music. Yngwie doesn't get the credit he deserves for like amazing riffs and amazing songs. He does have like plenty of amazing songs and riffs. So he's not just all shred like some people think he is. Yeah, Jason Becker's Air. I used to know that. I wish I still did. I don't remember that, but it's a gorgeous piece. Al Di Meola, yeah, I love his stuff. I have a couple of his albums, and yeah, he was a big shift too. Like when I heard his music for the first time, it was like, whoa, like this is like something I haven't really experimented with before. So yeah, Al Di Meola for sure. I don't remember it. I forget it now, but it's so good. Close, but not quite. I totally agree. Erotic Cakes by Guthrie Govan. I can put that on at any time and listen to that. It is unbelievable instrumental guitar album, and it definitely is up there on the list of greatest guitar albums of all time. As you said, the songwriting and everything, it really is an incredible album with some phenomenal playing. How do you go about gain staging on plugins or Cortex Axe Effects? Do you want to know how simple I am when it comes to setups and gear and everything? I could not explain to you what gain staging is. I don't really know what that is. I don't use a quad Cortex. I've never had one, and I don't have an Axe Effects. So I've never had one. What I'm using right now for the stream is the Soldano plugin from Neural DSP. But what I use for most of my videos, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it back here, but the Victory amp that's behind me. Most of the covers, if you see me plugged into that Victory, by the way, I'm going straight in. I'm just plugged into the front of the Victory amp. That's it. And I'm either using channel 1 or channel 2. And that's it. There's no pedals. There's nothing else ever other than a wah. Sometimes I use a wah, Sweet Child of Mine and stuff like that. Or what else did I do recently with the wah? Oh, I did an original with the wah recently. But yeah, no. Guitar into amp. That is my setup. Oh, okay. The input gain on your interface, it's like less than 1, I would say. It's very low, so the guitar's not clipping it. And then the gain on the plugin is halfway. It's between 4 and 5 right now. As you can hear, plenty saturated. I don't use a ton of gain. I think you get better tone with less. But yeah, let's do a little jamming. I feel a little warmed up now. Let's see what this is here. I'm just gonna pull up a random backing track. I have not heard this before. Let's see what's going on. That's cool. That felt pretty good. Loosening it up a little bit here.
And
it's always nice when you can find backing tracks that are inspiring to play over, and you kind of find that groove. Not all the time, but let's turn that up a little bit. like some of these. By the way, I am gonna keep answering questions, so keep keep going. Let's see what we got here. Ooh. That's pretty cool. That was fun. I like that one. That was cool. Kind of able to get into the zone on that one. All right, I think I improvised probably longer than I even realized there, so I apologize. Let's see if you guys have some cool questions here. How do you know what key a track is if it's not in the title? That's a good question. That's where the ear training comes in. When you listen to a track and you have no idea what key it's in, at least my method, you have to kind of fumble around the fretboard to try to find, the key. How I do that, though, is that was in F minor. So with a lot of ear training, as soon as you hit a couple notes, you know how those notes react to the key, if that makes sense. Like you can actually hear like, oh, that was the fifth, or that's the sixth, or that's the second, or something like that. And then it narrows down the key for you like pretty soon. And then not obviously, but sometimes you can hear the difference between major and minor keys a little bit easier than if it's E minor or G minor. That's really hard to tell without using the fretboard. What's the best way to start learning how to solo with chord tones? Is I did a video that I think is actually very helpful on my Patreon page, where I kind of showed you a system a little bit different than the cage system of what I think is easier and even better for using chord tones. And that would be using your arpeggios. So I would learn either your triad so that you can take chords across like 3 strings at a time. And you can play like the same chord, like a G major triad I'm doing there. A slightly out of tune G major triad, but you can move it around, and then that's you're able to kind of see where those chord tones would be on those strings. There we go. As you're playing. Now, just to show you one final thing with that, what I do with my students, which does take a lot of practice, but it's super helpful to what you're asking, is find a, let's say I'm doing a G. Let's put it on a clean tone here. That is not a clean tone. Say I'm doing G. And then try to find your other diatonic chords in the same vicinity as that chord. So like, let's say it's G to C instead of going. That's not very helpful in that position. You want to go and know where that C triad would be in the same vicinity. Let's say I go to D. Well, when I'm improvising, I can target all those chord tones. By the way, I'm pretty sure every note I just played there was a chord tone. So you just make it rhythmic and melodic, but you're just outlining. That's not how I would suggest improvising where you're only playing chord tones. I wouldn't do that because that would actually sound quite boring. But you know where they are. And then you can add in other notes, but still around that chord. Right? And then if it goes to C, you see the notes that you kind of gravitate around. And then to D. Hopefully that helps. Who is my okay, honestly, when you said play closer to the heart, it took me a second to realize the Rush song, and I thought you meant like play from the heart. I thought I was. I was playing from the heart. Stairway to Heaven, though, is the one that got me demonetized last time. I'm sure I'm probably already messed that up on this live stream of being demonetized, but Stairway got me demonetized last time. So go watch that live stream because I played the Stairway solo at the beginning of that live stream, and that's what did it. Foxy Lady. My favorite thing. I love how. Here, let's get this going here. I love how this is so recognizable on the guitar. Just that. The riff is awesome, the solo's awesome, all that stuff, but just I love that. I don't know why. I love that. Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally Wayne's World. Same with Stairway. No Stairway. Yeah, I love that movie so much. Okay, sorry, I'm getting carried away with these funny references. Do you ever try playing your favorite songs in different time signatures? Honestly, no, I don't. That would be kind of a fun thing to do. I think Bradley Hall does that sometimes. You guys probably know Bradley Hall on YouTube, and he'll do. What did I see him do? Like walk in like 9/8 time or something crazy like that. Yeah, those are fun videos, but I don't think of doing that. You know what would be funny? Just do the reverse and do like Dance of Eternity by Dream Theater, but in 4/4 the whole time. Just totally screw up the song. Oh, someone just beat me to that exact idea. So yeah, that's totally your idea. But just take all the Dream Theater tunes and just play them in 4/4 time. Any tips for getting the fusion sound when improvising? A lot of the times the fusion sound is more what you're playing over, to be honest. If you're playing over a track that you have these kind of like it doesn't sound the best with this distorted tone, but you kind of get the idea with these. Honestly, over that chord progression, if it's within a key, honestly, you could sound pretty fusiony just using the pentatonic scale, because the pentatonic scale would sound quite interesting over those chords, and it wouldn't sound like, you know, you're nothing wrong with that. I love that style of playing. I love that tone and everything, but it would just sound a little bit different if it's over a completely different style of music. Obviously in fusion though, then, you know, you probably want to go into the modes and the scales, like, you know, the full minor scale, harmonic minor, different modes. Use Dorian. Dorian's very like nice fusiony. Like that sounds kind of a little fusiony and just kind of interesting. And I'm only playing the Dorian mode. I'm not using anything outside of the key. Then you could throw in a little bit of chromaticism. And that's just, you know, chromaticism, using the notes out of the key to, you know, move to the notes in the key. Yngwie Malmsteen solos that's so tough because I think all of his solos, if I'm not mistaken, are improvised. So it's hard to like learn his improvised solos because he's so wild and he plays with such intensity that it's just like, who knows what comes out. I wouldn't know any off the top of my head, unfortunately. I forget Glasgow Kiss. I don't think I remember that one, unfortunately. Okay, I do have to run in a couple minutes here. Let's see if we can do another
Today, you don't
backing track here just for some fun. I really like that last one. That sounded nice. When you're unsure of what to do, just keep doing this. It works out. That's cool. Kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier, I'm trying to get into that zone as I'm improvising, and I'm trying to let my ear guide me there. So especially at the end, like, you can do the runs and all that kind of stuff, but like that little I'm trying to use my ear to kind of guide me through those steps. So I'm not even really thinking chord tones and stuff because I'm not looking at the backing track on the screen, so I don't know what chord is coming next. So I can only react to it after I hear it. It's not predetermined. And I think, honestly, that's a big part of the thing, where if you get too hung up on what chord is coming next and having to target its chord tones, then you're always sacrificing the current chord you're over, if that makes sense. So I actually think it's better to react to what you hear and hit a note over a certain chord, and then when it changes chords, should that note go up or down? You kind of react to that chord, if that makes sense, using your ear. So you know what? It's a good question. You said, wonder how that raw guitar sounds in the room without all the effects and the track. I was gonna say to sit in the mix with the track, the effects help. I can turn off those effects. See, it's a lot more dry. So if you're playing over a track, it's all personal opinion, but it just doesn't sit with it. Missed the ending, but you get the point. Like it. So when you're playing with the track, it's usually a lot nicer to have a little bit of reverb at least, or some delay. But it is good for practice, by the way, to practice without those effects. And that's one thing that I've loved about tracking and doing all the covers that I post with the amp, with the Victory amp, is because I record everything dry, and then the reverb and sometimes a hint of delay, but mostly reverb, is added afterwards in the mix. So it's a much more honest representation of, like, are you actually playing it as well as you think? And so I find it's actually made me a better player to track that way and to use the amp dry. So it's a good, practice tool. But usually if you want your guitar to sit in a song, then you want a little bit of space to it, which is your reverb. Someone just said how to find new phrases because I keep making the same phrases. So that's a very common thing for pretty much all guitar players. It doesn't matter how long you've been playing or who you are. Like, you tend to stick to a lot of the same things, right? So it's really good to just force yourself out of your comfort zone. Play in totally different styles than you're used to. I was playing over a backing track the other day. I won't be able to find it now, but it had a lot of really interesting chord changes in it that you almost had to follow. So you couldn't just stick to your usual phrases. You kind of had to follow those chords. Or if there's like a key change in it and stuff like that, again, you have to think creatively. And another good thing, even over the tracks that you do play with, like, say, I don't know, a blues or a rock or something like that, is limit what you can do on the fretboard. That's what I do with my students. You guys have probably heard this in other videos that I've done, where, and I can give you an example if you want, but try to improvise with like one single string on the guitar. A lot of guitar players know their scales this way, in boxes and vertically. It's a really good challenge to know your scales horizontally on the fretboard, and it makes you play different. It makes you phrase different. I find it kind of makes you phrase almost as if you're singing the notes, which is really nice. Okay, I'm just gonna go over the backing track of the next one. I don't know what it sounds like. I haven't heard it, but so if this is what I do with students is I'm gonna improvise with only the second string. That's all I can use is just the second string.
Yeah, movement that
no box shapes. You can't do that.
Yes.
It forces you to think differently, and you think naturally more creatively when you don't have as much to use. I'm glad you guys like the Dream Theater cover. Thank you. So only the second string. So it's hard to come up with like a decent sounding solo when you have one single string, but it forces you to just think of doing things different than you naturally would. So if you're used to sticking in a box for a scale, like you're just not going to do sweep pick on just the second string. I wish. Yeah, I wish I could, but it's just going to make you play differently. It's going to make you phrase differently. And it's going to kind of give you some new ideas. And then, of course, you take those ideas and you add them into your own, usual repertoire, and you just have more ideas to work with and all those little things. So even just if you are playing in a box, like just give yourself like 4 notes out of that whole box, and that's all you can use. And typically you think a bit more creatively that way. Do you think not all solos need shredding? Because I feel like sometimes I try to shred a lot. It's a great question. It's absolutely a great question. My answer would be no. You can make an outstanding solo with 0 shredding. And then you can also make a really cool solo with shredding. The shredding does not determine if it's good or bad. It's all the application. So it's the same way with anything, like a certain technique, whether you add in sweep picking or you don't, that doesn't determine if a solo is any good. It's how you do it. It's the context. It's the phrasing, right? It's the same thing with scales. You could know the most exotic scale in the world. If you don't use it well, if you don't phrase with it well, then it's not going to work. It's not going to sound good. So it's all about context when it comes to phrasing. And I would never, honestly, I'd never shred just to shred, right? Like I never do it because I want to play like a show off something or do something fast or something like that. But it's always to have an intensity or a run up or an increase in, dynamics or you know, if you do like and you get to that last note. I was actually thinking about this the other day, and I was meaning to make a video on this. Maybe I still will. I was thinking that shredding is kind of the same as like a skateboard trick. What I mean is, I don't skateboard, by the way, so I'm no pro in that. But the two are similar in the way that it's all about landing it. So with the skateboard, you can do as many flips as you want as you're in the air. If you don't land it, it doesn't mean anything. It's the same thing with like shredding or runs, basically. Like, scale runs is just like, it's all about the landing. And the landing is getting to that last note on the beat. That's, probably a chord tone to sound good with the chord. And you take out that ending note. If you flub the note, the whole run just means absolutely nothing and it totally falls apart. So usually when you hear like a crazy run that you're like, oh my God, that sounded so good, it was really that last note was the period at the end of the sentence that you were really hoping for. In that case, exclamation point that you were really hoping to hear. And everything before them was just building that intensity to that last note. So that's how I think about it. And hopefully that makes sense. But and again, that's just my approach. That's the way I look at it. But I do I never use shredding to just shred, right? I don't believe in like, oh, I've been practicing sweep picking recently, so now I have to do a solo and I'm going to sweep pick everything. I think that's a bad way to go about it. You guys are very generous here. With the super chats. I appreciate it. You guys don't have to do that, but I really appreciate the support. Thank you. Feel free to ask questions, especially if you're doing that. I'd love to answer your questions. You guys are very kind. Now, I do have to run in a couple minutes here, so if you guys have any questions before I go, I'm happy to answer as many as I can. I really appreciate that comment, Jake. I'm not going to read it all, but like out loud, but I appreciate it very much. That's very, very kind. Stuff like that is honestly such a motivating thing to me, to keep working hard and to keep creating content and to keep even just practicing to be at, the best I can do when it comes to playing and stuff. So it really does mean a lot to me when you guys leave such nice comments, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much. Oh my God, favorite riff? Now we're going to be here all night. No. Oh my God. You know what? My favorite riffs would probably not be like what people would assume, like, these crazy technical riffs, or sometimes the riffs that I absolutely love are, it has an impact. You know what I was listening to tonight that has one of my favorite riffs? Breakdown is the middle of Freak on a Leash by Korn. Like that, I don't know what it is, but that like that just hits like a ton of bricks in that song. So it's like, that's so simple but so effective. So I love stuff like that, especially the simple riffs. Those are usually the ones that I really love the most. I'm trying to think of other examples of that. Probably a lot of Zeppelin stuff. I love Jimmy Page's riffs. What's that? Zeppelin. Like that's not the craziest thing ever. Anyone could have kind of written that riff, but it just has such an effectiveness, and it just sounds so awesome in the tune. Or like riffs like that, I love them. Obviously, Van Halen riffs. Eddie's like a total riff master. But yeah, some of those are my favorite riffs. I would say are like those simple, like super effective riffs. Have I ever played the Killing Road solo by Megadeth? I haven't. I surprisingly, I actually don't know that song. I'd have to listen to it. Yeah, I'm surprised I've never heard that before. What's the best way to introduce music theory and start playing scales? Yeah, start simple. I always start students off with like the pentatonic scale and to get really comfortable with the pentatonic. Your pentatonic kind of serves as a foundation for a lot of other scales. And a lot of other scales are actually just kind of adding notes to the pentatonic. And that's kind of how I approach a lot of them. So get super comfortable with your pentatonic where you really try to do as much with that as you can. And then when you get into more complex scales and modes and all that kind of stuff, you're just simply kind of adding to that most of the time, right? And or changing little things to make it different scales. So start simple and then just start kind of adding little things here and there. That's usually how I go about it. Best way to practice artificial harmonics. So if artificial harmonics, you're talking about pinch harmonics. You know what? I've been teaching for so many years. I've been teaching for like 20 years now, which is insane. And that is one of like, let's say 2 things that is really hard to teach. Like pinch harmonics are actually really hard to teach. And the reason is like, you almost have to just kind of sit there and fiddle with it. Until you find that angle and that, that sweet spot to get them. Now, there are certain things like I would hold the pick really close to the edge that you're picking with so that there's not a ton of the pick sticking out. I tend to do that anyways. And then obviously for pinch harmonics, you want to roll your thumb onto the string afterwards. Easier said than done. Another thing is make sure you're on your bridge pickup. It will be a hard time having pinch harmonics on your neck, and then move the pick around as you're trying to get pinch harmonics, because there will be kind of dead spots that you can try your hardest and you just won't really get them. So move your hand around as you're trying them and you'll find those. See right there? That doesn't sound the best. It's not a very nice harmonic, at least. Right there, not much of a harmonic, and my technique's not changing. I'm still doing it the exact same way, but there's those sweet spots. So you kind of find those sweet spots, and then which will also change if, by the way, they do change if you're fretting a note. So you kind of just have to sit there and fiddle with it, but move your finger or your hand around as you're trying them and find those sweet spots. Thank you again, guys. You guys are being far too generous tonight. I appreciate all the super chats. Again, you definitely don't have to do that, but it is much appreciated. How many strings is too much on guitar? Like how many? I have a student who ordered a custom 9-string Kiesel guitar, and that thing is, you should see this thing. It's insane. Like it's just such a beast of an instrument, such a beast of a guitar. I think I've held a 9-string before. I've never really played a 9-string. I've played an 8-string just trying it out for fun, and I do like playing 7-string. I have a couple 7-strings. I've never owned an 8. Maybe one day, but it's a little much for me. But then, yeah, one of my students has a 9-string guitar. You should see this thing. It's just like total beast. Christian, I see a serious question. How do I sweep pick? I've been trying for years and can't get it down. I actually just posted a video last week, like a full lesson video on my channel about sweep picking. And I go over a lot of the fundamental stuff that I would go over with students of how to do it and how to approach it and how to practice it and stuff like that. So I would definitely suggest checking out that video. I would just be kind of repeating a lot of the stuff in that video. So definitely go. It's called The Real Way to Master Sweep Picking, and yeah, I would go watch that video, and I give you some things to practice in it for sweep picking. And then on my Patreon page, there's more like sweep picking exercises and etudes and stuff like that you can practice as well. Okay, last couple questions here because I do have to run in 2 minutes. When would you say it's the right time to use repetitive licks in an improv solo? It's a great question. So I think a lot of people view repetition the wrong way, in the sense that they think repeating things will sound boring, or people won't enjoy it. Think of it this way: when you listen to a song and it has a catchy chorus, it's catchy because you've heard it like many, many times in the song, like they repeat it many times. So if they didn't repeat it, you wouldn't remember it, and it wouldn't really stick out in your mind. So repetition when improvising is actually really good. You want to build these little themes. I'm going to pull up a backing track of random.
I have an obsession
to see if I can give you an example. It's harder to do than I'm making it sound, but you want to build these themes, and to have a theme, you need some repetition in there, because if you don't do that, it's just going to sound kind of like rambling. Oh, this sounds cool. Let's see if we can create a theme. If I pause it there, a lot of you would be able to sing back that melody to me now, and you would remember it. It would be stuck in your head. If I only did that one time and never came back to it again, it would not stay in your mind that way. And obviously, as you can see, I'm doing like little variations on it and changing maybe the ending or what I'm doing with it, but that da 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 da, like that's going to stick in your mind, right? So it's good to come up with these little themes. The guitar player, I think, who is the best at that, in rock at least, is Slash. Slash comes up with these like unbelievable themes that just get stuck in your head. So that is the goal. Let's keep going with this. I like this track. So hopefully that helps. That wasn't the best example, but you can hear that. Exactly. Eddie did it all the time. Like you want to actually have these repeating themes in there. Think of like For the Love of God by the first like minute of that whole song is just like kind of variations on that theme, right? So it's like it's what makes it so iconic. So I do have to run, guys. I appreciate everyone joining me tonight, and thank you all for the super chats. You guys don't have to do that, but it is very much appreciated. And I just have a lot of fun coming on here and jamming with you guys and talking guitar and answering your questions and stuff like that. So I appreciate all of you joining me, and hopefully we can do this again next weekend. So you guys have an amazing night, and I will see you guys next time. See ya.